is now the ultimate power in the universe.
What's up, everybody? This is Ro from the Scare of Scuttlebutt podcast, and I am joined tonight for a little impromptu discussion about, I don't know, we can find something to talk about with Andrew from Coruscant Radio Underground. Andrew, how's it going, man?
Going good.
Excellent, excellent. I asked you before we went on the air if you had gotten a chance to watch The Bad Batch, and you told me yes. What were your thoughts on this episode?
You know, the episode is fun. I liked all it's kind of a lot of chaotic action stuff, which was fun. You know, getting to a little bit of action from the droids is always fun. You know, little humor with the battle droids. And I actually, though, this is the first one, and I see it as a missed opportunity.
Okay.
And I've got one big kind of nitpick with this episode.
All right, let's hear it. I was pleasantly surprised. Again, I know, and actually, if folks in the chat that are starting to come in, if you hadn't seen the episode, we're going to talk spoilers. The episode was out today. Fair warning. But what are your reservations on today's episode?
So I like what they did. I understand why they brought the Martez sisters in order to be able to tie them back somehow to kind of the beginnings of the rebellion. Specifically, I assume with Ahsoka, with her early days as a spy for
Sure.
the blooming rebellion. But you're going to Corellia. There's a certain 13-year-old street rat that should have been the one they were fighting for that droid.
Yeah, that would have been very interesting. I think, when I heard Corellia, I thought, oh, okay, but I didn't. I mean, obviously, I made the connection, but I didn't think they would go there. I think maybe they're saving it for something else. But I'm sure Dave Filoni is throwing in these familiar names. It's really cool to hear.
It's fair enough that he wants to bring in characters that he created.
Absolutely, yeah. And I know the sisters had a little bit of a rough time, at least from some fans when they first appeared. I didn't get that. I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, I hate them," or they're not very interesting. But I thought the story between them and Ahsoka was very interesting. I like the fact that Ahsoka learned something about herself and the Jedi from the common man, from the perspective of just regular people, and I found that interesting.
The characters were fine. There wasn't honestly the biggest problem with them in that last season of the Clone Wars is not the characters themselves. It's just that we were all really, really ready to get to that throwdown with Maul.
Yeah.
That big final arc. That's what we, Order 66 and all that. That's what we were ready to get to. So sitting through whether it was the Bad Batch arc or the Martez sister arc or whatever it was just kind of like, okay, but let's see this other stuff.
Yeah. Totally. We'll get there. I don't want to I don't want to cut to the chase towards the end there, but I'm like really getting nervous. Wrecker keeps hitting his head, and each time it's a little worse and worse and worse. So I thought this time around was really something was gonna happen because he kept on repeating that mantra. Good soldiers follow orders. So what are your thoughts on that going forward?
I mean, I think it's reached the point, for a little while it was kind of like, is this a red herring? Are they just kind of trying to throw us off? But now I think you've reached the stage where it's kind of like Chekhov's gun now. It's this thing, like you've gone too far. Like now you have to do it.
Yeah.
Like this can't just disappear now. You have to go all the way with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, Backyard TARDIS, if you haven't seen the episode, go check it out and then come back and watch us on the replay. But thank you very much for stopping by. And also the ladies of Force of Light Entertainment, it's past their bedtime. They just wanted to stop by and say hello. But I enjoyed both last week's episode and this week's episode, and I know a lot of people are calling them side quests, side adventures, filler episodes, whatever you want.
Right.
But they may be, but I'm finding the characters interesting. I'm finding the relationships between the Bad Batch and Omega. I'm finding that relationship really like a breath of fresh air. It's something I think that we needed, maybe in real life, maybe in Star Wars fandom, but there's such an innocence going on there that I think it's nice to watch.
Right.
I don't know what your thoughts on that.
Well, it's like I said the other night, we can call them side quests. I think they're fine. I think they've been good episodes.
Sure.
They've been a lot of fun. We're learning a lot about the characters through these individual quests, which is great. I think to some extent, the whole disdain for side quests is kind of this whole people have forgotten how to watch TV.
Yeah.
Side quests have always been a part of action shows.
Sure.
They just are. It's not something new, and all shows do it.
Yeah.
But I think the big thing is it's kind of hard to call it a side quest when we haven't identified the main quest yet.
Right. Yeah. And, like you said, we talked about it the other night. 16 episodes were hardly not even at the halfway point, I don't think. So
yeah, I think we've got, what do we have, 16 episodes?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, so we've still got a ways to go. It's like at some point we do have to identify what the main quest is, but I don't even think we've identified it. I don't
even think the Bad Batch knows what the actual quest is. I think they're kind of, they're lost. They've been part of the clone army for forever, and now they're like, what do we do?
I think that's the thing. I think it's all side quests because they're trying to find their place in this new world,
right?
Or the new galaxy, and because of that, it's all side quest.
Exactly. Yeah. Somebody equated this series to the A-Team. Mm-hmm. I think, I think they have a point to a degree, obviously. But like I said, I'm really enjoying, trying to see where this is going. Not that I don't have expectations really. I'm really excited to kind of go along for the ride. With the rest of us, so we'll see. What else about this episode has you buzzing?
Like I said, I love the action. I mean, this was the most action we've gotten in an episode of this series yet, and kind of when you're dealing with clones, especially these clones, like that's what you want to see. You want action.
Yeah.
We've got these super soldiers basically. Let's show them off, and we got to see some of that. We got to see them in action a little bit. And we got a little humor in this episode,
that was great.
Between the droids and one of the Martez sisters saying, "Is there an echo in here?"
Right.
So it was I thought it was a really fun, well-balanced episode.
Yeah, and I loved there was a line that one of the droids says, "Did we win?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they always do such a great job with the humor from the droids and Rebels, Clone Wars. It's always been fun when they've done stuff with the droids.
Yeah, and Sean has a point there. I think he came into the show a few minutes after you had mentioned that's lost opportunity about Solo being on Corellia. But yes, absolutely extra techie.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he would have been 13 years old at the time of this episode. So, I mean, it certainly wouldn't have been out of place to have had him show up.
Sure, yeah. And what do you think? Did we find out really why they were after the droid head? Military secrets or coordinates or something or other? It wasn't perfectly clear to me, but maybe by hints I can kind of figure out why they wanted it. Because obviously it was a command droid, so it had a lot of data.
Right. I guess it's all about who wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was someone in the criminal underworld, which we've dealt with a little bit, You know, someone it would make perfect sense for someone in the criminal underworld to want it.
Sure.
It would also make sense for the emperor to want to kind of recapture those things. I mean, he was the head of both sides of the war, and you know, at some point you'd think there'd have to be a little bit of a cover up of the fact that he was leading leading both sides.
Right, right. So Dale mentions Sid, and I love her character. She's really great. Do you think she's playing both sides?
I mean, she's a criminal element, so I would certainly expect that she's looking out for number one. So she's working for whatever's most advantageous for her.
Yeah. And then we got the Martez sisters, that hologram at the end. I don't know if we should touch on that, but, you know, obviously there were some guesses on Twitter of who that hologram was, who they were talking to. But even before that, I wanted to ask you, oh, I just lost my train of thought. So what else about that episode? You know, every episode that comes out, I'm really noticing just the amazing work that goes into the animation. Those wide shots are getting a lot more detailed, especially in this episode when they went to Corellia and they had that approach shot where the ship is going into and landing. Yeah, that was phenomenal. I'm really enjoying the visuals of this show, even more so I think than any previous animation. And obviously, you know, they've upped their ante on this, and I'm really digging it.
Right.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean that last season, that final season of the Clone Wars was pretty spectacular too, as far as giving us some of those big wide shots. And it's just, it's as far as animation right now. I mean, Filoni's pushing the envelope.
Yes.
As far as what they can do, you see a lot of these new animated shows, and it's like digital animation has come so far and allows you to do just absolutely incredible things. I mean, they do space scenes on these cartoons that look as good as the space scenes in the prequel trilogy.
Yeah, I was noticing that exactly when the ships go past. I'm like that's like a prequel shot. It's beautifully done.
And so where I see a lot of cartoons where the digital animation has made them lazy, where they just do the bare minimum and they render everything and just put it out quick.
Right. Yeah.
As far as what can really be done in animation, they're pushing the envelope.
Yeah. There are certain things that I'm noticing from like my perspective, and I'm sure you are, because you also dabble in the visual there. But you know, there are camera moves in the virtual reality in the scenes that are really great. And that started even when we first saw the introduction of Bad Batch in season 7 of Clone Wars. There was you know, similar to the Daredevil one-shot fight hallway scene. There was a shot when they were in that hallway. The camera was just moving, and you know, it was really amazing, very well done. And like you said, they're pushing the envelope in this series as well with that. I noticed that a lot of the texturing is ramped up as well. Yeah. You no longer have, you know, flat shiny surfaces. There's kind of like a grit, like a really gritty texture to it. And obviously the background on our show, you can kind of see a little bit of that, but it really goes a long way with believability and just that world building that we are all used to in a Star Wars.
Yeah. No, extreme attention to detail.
Absolutely. So we got some comments in our chat regarding the final moments there. And it does look like everybody is thinking Bail Organa. We know that he was a pivotal character in the starting of the rebellion. We see that in the Ahsoka novel and other stories. So what are your thoughts? Who do you think that is?
You know, I was trying to pull it up and look and get a better look at it because I just watched it the one time, and
sure.
I mean, Bail Organa is a great guess, and then we know that he's likely got a connection to Ahsoka.
Right.
I mean, you've got. I mean, this is the early days. I mean, Ahsoka is acting as Fulcrum by this point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as far as the names we really know, I think they're clearly working for someone instrumental to creating the rebellion. So Bail's a great choice. You've also got people out there like what's his name that we already saw earlier this season.
In Bad Batch?
No, yeah, Forrest Whitaker's character. I'm totally
Saw
blanking.
Gerrera.
Saw Gerrera.
Yeah.
There are characters out there. I've seen a lot of like tying to a Jedi or even a criminal element. And I don't think it's a Jedi. The only Jedi that I think they would be having any association with at this point is Ahsoka.
Right. And I think if they reveal it to be a Jedi, they're repeating, the Luke Skywalker moment in Mandalorian. I don't think they're going to go that route.
Yeah. No, I don't either.
But yeah, Saw Gerrera seems like, obviously he's been mentioned. Oh, what about Rex? His name is mentioned.
Yeah.
Although I think Rex could just kind of, pick up a phone and just give him a call and say, "Hey, where are you guys?" But
right.
I'm not sure what the cloak and dagger is with that. But do you think that we'll see Rex in this show?
I think it makes perfect sense. I think it's sort of a shame if we don't. And as previously mentioned, with kind of passing over this opportunity to do something with someone like Han Solo, and you pass that by, the fact that, of course, like I said, it makes sense. They needed to somehow give Ahsoka or Rex or someone an indication that these guys are out there.
Right.
So the Martez sisters make sense in that respect. Mm-hmm. They've got the connections to let someone know that the Bad Batch is out there and that they didn't turn. So I think Rex makes perfect sense. I think, and knowing, and with the previous mention of Filoni's liking to bring in his own characters, I think there's a real high chance that Rex shows up at some point.
Sure. Yeah. So going forward, I mean, where do you see the Bad Batch ending up? I know we're cutting way to the future, but it's again, I've got no expectations. I haven't really thought that much that much forward.
I don't know, because it's one of those things as you start putting people, okay, so they go and they join the rebellion. And then you start having to ask, well, why have we never run into them? And you don't necessarily have to say, well, why didn't we run into them as late as, say, the original trilogy? But why didn't we run into them in Rebels? Mm-hmm. So I don't know where you send them that they're enough out of the way that we have no contact with them. But at the same time, you're building them up to be important characters. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go, both with the Bad Batch themselves and with Omega.
We lost Andrew. He's loading. There you go. You're back.
Okay. I have no idea what you heard last.
It was just a few seconds, but I said it with you last week too. I also think that they're preparing for some sort of major loss, a death, some sort of tragedy, and they're upping everything. Music, animation, story, and they're playing up on our emotions as well. So I anticipate something real sad coming up in the future. With one of these characters, because they're really, I'm finding myself being, really attached to a lot of them. So I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm real interested to see where they're going with it. I mean, I think the obvious answer is that they wind up somehow tied to the rebellion, and today's episode would certainly give you the idea that that's where it's going for them. But it really seems like, and again, kind of Filoni's method here. I mean, he builds characters up to be pretty important. So I don't know where they're headed with Omega.
Yeah. And that's one of the biggest mysteries too there. We don't know who she is, what her function is, what her abilities are, if any. Obviously, we hear rumors about people think she's force sensitive, she's a failed Palpatine clone, which might not be too far-fetched, but looking forward to seeing, trying to figure out. And I know those Kaminoans, we talked about it last week, those Kaminoans are hiding something. They got a plan up their sleeve.
Yeah. Well, and I think that I'm still of the mind that the Emperor doesn't know about Omega.
Yeah.
And that's why they're okay with the fact that she's run off with the Bad Batch.
Right.
Because if it was something that would be seen as the property of Palpatine, then you would be pretty upset about losing that.
Sure.
But since they're like, well, maybe it's better that she's out of the way for right now, really kind of gives me the idea that I think she was probably something in an experimental way to correct the DNA, the defects in the DNA that were beginning to arise. So I think she's part of their contingency plan.
Right. So let's go back a little bit and kind of go over who is after whom. We got Fennec Shan, who has Omega as the target. Is that right?
Yeah.
And then who hired her? So
I think so far that's the biggest question the series has asked is who hired Fennec Shand.
Right.
And I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of, it would have to be somebody that knows that Omega even exists.
Right. Right. So let's bring in another voice. We got Mike from Wookiee Radio that is waiting in the green room. Another Red Fiver. What's up, Mike? How you doing this evening? Andrew, can you hear him? Or is it just me again?
No, I can't hear him.
I didn't want to say anything because apparently last time it was just me and not your stream. But what do we got here from Semper Fi? We are in the timeline where Rey's father is either born or already alive. I am under the impression he was around the same age as Luke and Leia, and that might be interesting too because we have the expanded universe or legacy story of the Dark Empire when Palpatine tried to clone Luke to jump into his body. So that might be a kind of an interesting pull from that storyline.
Yeah, when I kind of said it as a joke the other night about her being Rey's mother, but we're not totally out of question with that.
Right, exactly. How we doing, Mike? On the mic. Nothing? All right, so until we get that situated, anybody have any other thoughts in the chat? I love the fact that they brought in Saw Gerrera too for this series. I think it's he's one of those great, very interesting and multi-layered characters in Star Wars. There's quite a few, but Saw Gerrera really, we saw him in Rogue One, obviously. We saw him in Rebels and all the way up from his early introduction. And I really love the fact that we're kind of seeing more of him, or we will see more of him. And, hopefully we'll see him in Andor.
I think you have to see him in Andor, right?
Yeah.
Like, what I want to see in Andor is I want to see what the moment was where the rebellion couldn't work with him anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're primed to see that.
Yeah. And it's got to be horrific because, I read, what is the Jyn Erso book, Rebel Rising.
Yeah.
And, and there's a couple of Star Wars comic books that have some stories of Saw Gerrera. And I think even I think even Leia has an incident that Saw Gerrera blew up an Imperial commander, but with a lot of collateral damage, some civilians on board, and he's real rough around the edges, if you know what I mean.
Well, I mean, in a lot of ways, he's our other side of the coin to Vader. I mean, they
Yeah.
definitely made that parallel with him being
Yeah.
kept alive by machines, and
Right.
he's just willing to go a little bit too far.
Yeah.
Vader committing genocide across the galaxy, and I'm kind of expecting something on that scale.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty
And
dark.
Yeah, definitely. And his dialogue when he appeared in front of Mon Mothma and talked about the rules of engagement, and Mon Mothma or Saw Gerrera was kind of scolding Mon Mothma. I think it was in an episode of Rebels. I mean, that conversation was very chilling. He's like, I'm doing what I need to do to make results. And how will the Empire look at you when you're playing by the rules and all that stuff?
Mm-hmm.
So all that stuff is really interesting, and I hope they really dive into that war stuff in Andor. Let's see if Mike got his mic fixed. Bring him on in.
Is it working now?
Yes, it is. You sound so manly, more so than usual.
Well, that's a nice thing to say.
Excellent. How you doing, Mike?
Doing good. Just like the other day with Andrew, just got done recording episode of We Be Geeks instead of Wookiee Radio.
Nice. So, we just jumped in here kind of impromptu talking about Bad Batch. Obviously, today's episode, we are kind of diving into that. What are your overall thoughts on, what was the episode name called? Decommission.
When I first saw Decommission, I'm like, ooh, okay, we're
It wasn't what I thought.
Right.
It wasn't what I thought. How much spoiler are we going here? Are we?
Oh, we already spoiled it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to start seeing the clone decommission.
Yeah. Well, I thought, because we talked about that just the other night, and I saw the title and I was like, oh God, like it's happening.
Oh, it's happening. Oh, yeah. But instead we got decommissioning of the droids.
Right. Yeah.
So or some. But I found it interesting that they're decommissioning droids, but who's guarding the facility? The Corellian police.
Right.
Police droids. Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. How ironic. No, I liked it. I'm like, the two is going after the tactical droid, the TD's head. I'm like, wait, these sound familiar. I'm like, oh, okay. It's the two
Marquez sisters, yeah.
Yeah, from which was the second arc in
the last
7. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So my question is, now I'm trying to figure out, who are they talking to in that cult?
Right.
Because I kind of saw robes.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's where people are running with that theory that it might be Bail.
That's what I was thinking. Because at first I'm like, what Jedi are they talking to? It's not Ahsoka. Ahsoka isn't wearing robes anymore.
Right.
And they didn't trust any other Jedi. So the only person I know that would have something like that would be Bell. But it could be potentially Saw Gerrera too.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and look at it. They didn't show a lot, but what they did show, I mean, everybody obviously picked up on the robes. And I was telling Andrew, Mike, before you showed up, that I don't think somebody had mentioned it might be a Jedi or et cetera, but I think I don't think they'll repeat that, since they kind of did that at the end of Mandalorian. They didn't want to kind of do a repeat of that. So this might be somebody low key, but somebody of great
Actually,
importance.
I just had another thought.
Mm.
Just hit me. What if it's Maul, and we're seeing this and he formed Crimson Dawn right as all this was happening. Took advantage.
Oh,
of
and they're
creative-
on Corellia.
Yeah.
I can kind of see that, Andrew.
I can see that for sure, but I'm
Yeah.
still pretty convinced it's someone tied to the early rebellion.
I think so too.
I think with the whole conversation about, knowing that they'll do the right things with the data spike, points us in the direction of the rebellion.
Yeah, and I don't think the Marquez sisters would team up in some way with someone like Maul.
I think they're still connected to Ahsoka, which, like
Yeah.
I said, could connect them to any number of people in the rebellion, or what will become the rebellion.
Yeah. So Dale, I posted a comment on there from Dale. He says, I think people are saying Rex wears civilian clothes too. But we were talking about where does everybody end up? And I know, the character Cut was a clone that kind of, went conscientious objector there and just kind of left the army. Mm-hmm. Are we thinking that maybe Rex did the same thing after Order 66? Or do you think he's on a mission? Obviously, we've heard his name mentioned in the series, but where is he and what is he up to?
Well, as we saw at the beginning, all the clones were called back to Kamino.
Mm.
And supposedly, I don't know if all of them were being reevaluated, or if it was just the under, everyone non-com
Right.
being evaluated. We know the one group not being evaluated is the shock troopers, whether they're officer or non-com. They weren't being evaluated because they're working directly for the Emperor, and they're essentially the Emperor's hand and Tarkin's hand.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I-
My assumption, Rex had his chip deactivated during that last episode of the Clone Wars. So, we know he goes into hiding, just kind of goes out to a far corner of the galaxy to hide out with some of his crew. So, I guess it's a matter of, has he already gone, or is he still around?
right.
Yeah.
Well, we know Gregor and Wolf had theirs fixed as well.
Right.
By the time we see them. Now, speaking of the chip, I think it's getting interesting seeing Wrecker's chip. It's like it's starting to kick into overdrive on him.
Right.
And it's like, what's going to cause it to snap on him with the all good soldiers follow orders? They're not around any Jedi unless he's able to sense that maybe Omega has some.
Yeah, that's what people were saying, that there's no Jedi around, so who is he going to do Order 66 on? And if he is near Omega, and she does end up, having some sort of Jedi powers because she's a clone of a Jedi, that would be very interesting to see that play out. Obviously, because her and Wrecker have already been established as kind of a big brother, relationship that they have, and it certainly would, portray some really heavy drama in that story. So, the one thing I can't believe is that none of these clones have any Tylenol or Advil for his headache. Just give him a pill, man.
Just stop in Batu and get some death sticks.
Yes. But yeah, Dale is also a little worried. But we'll see. He'll probably hit his head next week's episode, and we'll see what happens there. Good stuff. When do you guys think that what's his name is going to develop his little scanner to deactivate or scan the chip? When is that going to happen?
I think I think it's going to ramp up once they realize Wrecker's being affected by it more.
Yeah. And so far, they, besides Wrecker kind of like tapping on his head in the ship, they really haven't seen the severity of Wrecker's headaches. They haven't really seen him get hit and, murmur those or, mumble those words, good soldiers follow orders. So I think it might come to as a surprise to them when it comes full circle here, and we see whatever it is that he is going to end up doing. It's really going to kind of hit him by surprise, I think.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah,
I did enjoy the droid version of Good Soldiers Follow Orders.
Oh yeah, what was that?
It's just, oh well, orders are orders.
Yeah, they always had some really great lines. Those damn droids, the clankas.
well, I think it's funny, the regular battle droids.
Yeah,
It's like who if you're scrapping battle droids, why are you leaving weapons on the belt with them?
oh
that-
yeah.
I mean, the super battle droids, they're built in.
Right. Yeah,
With the regular battle droids, all of a sudden you see one pop up, and then the next one
with
pops
weapons.
up. It's like,
It's just it's just easier to take. It's just easier to take a large broom and just shove them into that trough. So, don't worry about it. And then weapons get modernized. I mean, nobody's using their Commodore 64 anymore. You just get some new stuff and keep going.
okay. I'm using my Commodore 64 right now to do this. 8-bit looks great in HD.
That actually would be kind of funny to do I can, like run it through Photoshop or something and just have us be 8-bit emojis live. Hilarious. Cool. So where did we leave off? What is the expectations? Do we have episode names for the episodes yet? For the upcoming?
Not that I'm aware of.
No? Mike, do you know?
No, Wikipedia does not.
Yeah.
I was looking last night, and I don't even think before this one dropped. I don't think the title was up till after the episode dropped.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's kind of that's mysterious too. Episode 19 or episode where are we at? 7? 6? No.
6.
Episode 8. Wrecker's chip fails.
I'm assuming they hold the titles back because some of the titles are sort of on the nose and they produce wild speculation.
Sure. Yeah. Like I know the episode 1 soundtrack was ruined, or episode 1 was ruined a lot by the soundtrack when the title said Qui-Gon's meets his demise.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, I guess he dies.
IMDb has next week's listed as episode 1.7.
So yeah, we're not even halfway yet if they're doing 16 episodes. So
yeah,
that's pretty cool. Are we going to see little Kanan Jarrus again?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, if we get a season 2, maybe. But I don't think
Yeah, I think this is a one-off. Mike, I asked Andrew where you guys think they will end up at the end of all this. I know we're cutting to the far future, but obviously we don't see them in any of the properties up to now. Do you think some of them die, like the Rogue One crew, or do you see them kind of going into hiding at the end of this series? Big hello to Cam Ray, who's in the chat. Thank you, Cam, for stopping by.
I don't.
but
I'm not sure. And I think I may have found a video that has the list of titles.
don't.
Sorry, not look. I know, dangerous to go there. I'm just curious because is
Sure.
that?
Anybody have any questions in the chat for us? We'll take questions,
It's a loaded question.
suggestions, donations.
Always take donations.
What's Dale got? I hope Omega gets to be known as Boba's sister. There's an EU comment for you, Andrew.
I am surprised. Name of the episodes are really tight lipped.
Yeah, I think that's cool. I mean, I think it gives us.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, I think it keeps things under wraps and also prevents our theories from just going totally off the rails based on
Yeah.
episode titles, because you're just building yourself up for disappointment.
Yeah.
When you start trying to figure things out based on
Sure,
things like episode titles.
So we got a question from the chat from Semperfi Danny. Thoughts about the comic reveal today with regards to the appearance of a certain major character, and I think she's talking about the War of the Bounty Hunters.
With Kira.
And yeah, I mean, if they're going to explore kind of that storyline a little bit, I think sometimes too they use the comic books to gauge the audience's interest to see where they're going to go next. And obviously we don't really have a solid plan for Star Wars in the on the big screen, really as of now. So with everything that's happening on the small screen, I think Star Wars is going to be living there for a while. But
Right. Well, the only thing we know with the big screen is the next quote unquote film is 2023 with Rogue Squadron.
right, yeah,
Which
and
is fine. I'm enjoying having this break from the big screen. As much as I love the films having one a year, I'm enjoying the break. And I would love to see it go back to one, if we're going to put one out, let's do one every other year.
mm-hmm.
Or if you're going to put them out, follow the Marvel mentality or the Disney Pixar mentality, one in the spring, one in the fall, as long as they're not related to each other.
Yeah, I mean, back when Marvel started out, they were rolling one a year.
Mm-hmm.
They built up, they earned this whole being
Sure.
able to drop 4 a year on us.
Right.
And Star Wars is going to have to do the same thing. They're going to have to earn that trust in releasing multiple properties a year if they're going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I really think they ought to go to a 1 a year model is what I would like to see.
On the big screen, I think for Star Wars, a 1 a year model is too much. I think one every other year is fine for Star Wars.
Remember when we had one every 3 years? Damn it, get off my lawn.
Believe me, that was painful. To sit there for 2 years dwelling on
Yeah.
who Luke
Is
Luke's father,
Is Vader, right?
and who's this other Jedi they're talking about?
But the Marvel machine must be massive in order for them to keep up their schedule. And I know, basically it's kind of like the same family from a production standpoint. But that's to be able to do that many Marvel films and Star Wars films under the same umbrella, with presumably a lot of the same folks behind the scene, has got to be a massive undertaking.
Right.
And throw in television and throw in animation and stuff like that. So,
Well, The thing about Marvel, it's like everybody's like, well, just emulate Marvel. Well, if everybody could emulate Marvel, they would. Marvel's
Right,
done
yeah. something
something that nobody else
Unprecedented.
has even come close to achieving.
Right. Yeah.
It's they call it lightning in a bottle. And it's not just something you can just run out and emulate.
Right.
There are certainly lessons to learn from it, but you can't just duplicate it.
But unfortunately, DC hasn't learned those lessons.
No, DC tried to emulate it and learned none of the lessons.
Actually, no, I don't think DC tried to emulate anything. They looked at it and like, oh, we can improve upon this, and they failed.
I don't even think DC had a plan. I think they were waiting for Marvel to either fail or see how they did, because they were pretty late in the game. And once Marvel got that, that proverbial ball rolling down that hill, they're like, oh wait, we need to do something like this. And I think the suits got involved and said, what do we got here? Let's put something out.
That's exactly why they brought in Joss Whedon to try to finish that movie, because they saw that because they brought him in. He finished that first Avengers film and it was gold, and they saw that as an opportunity to take this dark, gritty universe that Zack Snyder was creating and inject that humor that Marvel has into it. And of course, you can't just Zack Snyder and Joss Whedon's styles are so far apart. Mm-hmm. You ended up with this Frankenstein of a movie that was just bad.
Seeing that you got Danny's post up, I wouldn't say they're easier and cheaper to tell on frequency. I mean, budgets are almost the same these days between comic book films and Star Wars or Star Trek or whatever. I think it's just where it's easier for Marvel as opposed to what Star Wars had the first time from the return of the films to the big screen. Marvel, you can still tell individual films that have that subplot to bring them together for the group film. Star Wars, you're going, okay, we're going films that took 3 years to make, and 3-year gap between releases because it took 3 years to make, are being done in a year and a half and released every other year.
Right.
With the episodics. I mean, because if you think about it, 77, 80, 80, 83, the original trilogy. And then, was it 99, 2001, 2002, 2005?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Again, 3 years in between.
Mm-hmm. Well, and a lot of that was because both times they were creating the technology to do what they were doing.
Right.
And it took a long time, but I mean, we're so far past that now with the digital stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
But you look at the sequel trilogy, it's what, 15, 17, 19.
Yeah, and they could have done those every year if they had really wanted to.
Or planned to.
Well, that was the thing. It would have had to have been planned from the beginning, we're going to release one a year. You would have had to have been working on 2 movies simultaneously.
Sure. Yeah.
To do that, but it's not impossible. They certainly could have done that.
Yeah.
I'm glad they took the 2 years between, because it gives you a little more time to polish a product. But you don't need more than 2 years to make a movie now.
Right. And they were polishing up to the last minute. We've obviously we've talked to Yoshi Vu, who was working on the Rise of Skywalker, and they were, he was comping shots up into the last minute. So, according to him, so he's the one doing the work.
Yeah. I just think with the first 5 films, the Last Jedi is what ended up being the pothole that slowed down the momentum and with the fan reaction there, and then Disney trying to whether it was Disney or Lucasfilm or both, reacting, taking a gut knee-jerk reaction to the fan outcry and not pushing Solo, not taking the advice of Ron Howard to push Solo back. I know he wanted to go December. They didn't want to run it up against Mary Poppins 2. Um, we,
I want to ask you guys.
which is the reason why it didn't go to December.
Yeah,
We talked about on Wookiee Radio. Labor
yeah.
Day weekend would have been a perfect time. That would have given them a few more months, and then gave them a chance to really promote during the summer. And the summer off with a blast with Solo, I think it would have had better success in the theater.
I'm kind of pissed off that Star Wars moved from May to winter, because obviously for me, you know, May has always been the blockbuster summer, you know, Star Wars event for my friends and I. You know, once they moved to December for whatever reason, I'm like, it's you know,
It's because Marvel.
Sure.
Well, there's a couple of things. I mean, they had the one that really killed it in the winter, the December slot that kind of got people looking at that for blockbusters was the Lord of the Rings trilogy. You know, that's when people first went, well, maybe the December slot can be the big blockbuster spot. But yeah, again, I think that largely, and I don't know what to make of it. To me, it screams of a lack of faith in their product, that they won't they're scared to go toe to toe with other properties. It's like you have the most beloved, maybe the most important franchise
Right.
out there. Like as far as cinema history, this it's not the biggest anymore. Marvel's passed you by, but still probably the most important culturally.
Right.
And you've got so much good story to tell there. You shouldn't be afraid to release Star Wars against anything.
I agree. Let alone Mary Poppins.
Right.
Again, there was a lot of
But it's
with that film. That's why, I mean, Poppins. So I want to say too. That was prior to Poppins was Frozen 2. I think came out around the same time. There was some other big Disney animated feature.
I would love to see Star Wars come back and reclaim the May spot.
Yeah.
You know, having had those. I mean, I was too young when the originals came out. I mean, I was alive when two of them, or I was born the weekend that Empire came out. So I was 3 when Jedi came out. But with the prequels, that's what we did for my birthday. You know, that we went and saw those Star Wars movies when those were coming out. And man, I would love for them to reclaim that spot.
Even if they don't come back to May, I wouldn't mind Star Wars being that end of summer, back to school blockbuster that really get everyone going. And since Marvel has kind of taken over the start of summer blockbuster slot, let Star Wars be the end of summer back to school slot with Labor Day weekend. End of August into Labor Day weekend.
You know, Matt Vader has
The same way.
Matt Vader has a point up here. Part of the problem with Disney owning everything is that you can't have all the kids fighting for the same audience. But that's one of the things. That's one of the things I heard, though. Is like they wanted to make sure that the pie gets spread out equally. But me but me as a moviegoer, as someone that loves theater, if there's 3 movies that I want to see in the theater,
go see them.
then I'm going to go see them.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, I'm not going to see this Marvel because I'm going to watch this Star Wars 3
Your
times.
your big moviegoers are going to see it. If you release 2 great movies the same weekend, people are going to go see them.
Yeah.
Hell, I'll go see them back to, I'll go to the theater and just see them back to back.
And I'll make the argument that Solo being released in May was up against a Marvel film, was up against Jurassic World was up against, I want to say Deadpool 2. I mean, there were some heavy hitters that particular year for that particular month.
Yeah, but I don't think that had that much of an effect as much as people think. I think really what hurt him was just the core fan backlash of the fact that people just did not like The Last Jedi and
Yeah.
said, "There's another Star Wars coming out. I'm going to sit this one out."
I think there were two main things, and I think that was one of them.
Right.
Was that the fandom had just not, whether you liked it or loved the movie, I'm not even getting into that. There's no denying how divisive it was. There was
Right.
huge backlash from that film. And so whatever you thought about it, that's a fact. But the other thing was, on top of that, people just weren't that into the idea of recasting Han Solo.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't think
Yeah,
I didn't mind, but I think after the fact, I wasn't too crazy about Alden as Han Solo.
See, I liked him as Han, but it was there. I mean, countless people that I talked to that just wouldn't go see it because that's not Han Solo.
Right.
I,
I've got friends that say that.
all,
This-
all- see, the fandom was fandom wasn't pissed at that it wasn't Han Solo. Obviously, you couldn't do Harrison.
The midget.
Um, everything we had heard in the circles I was in has been the hatred about Last Jedi.
Mhm.
And then the other thing that killed it is the fact that they're just like John Carter, no promotion at all.
And that was Disney's fault.
Yeah.
That was purely them siding with Marvel in what was going to get the advertising in that slot. And that's, again, that's the problem. And they're just going to have to, in the end, go toe to toe.
I think part of it too was they didn't know what to do because Ron Howard was still working, and and he's going, look, I'll make your deadlines, but he kept pushing to get it pushed back,
Yeah.
so he had more time.
And they should have given it to him. They should have.
They should have. They should have.
And-
I
and
mean,
that's
but
the thing.
and I understand, from a business standpoint, from the studio perspective, they spent probably twice as much as what they wanted to with the reshoots and the schedules and this and that, and I'm pretty sure they said, you know what, we just got to get it out so it makes some money. We got to get it out. We can't keep doing this, and to wait another 6 months for them to continue working on it and drain that Disney pocketbook some more. Would it have made more money if they worked on it another 6 months? I'm not entirely sure. I think the movie came out fine. It was fun. It is what it is, but I don't think another 6 months would have helped it a hell of a lot more than what it was.
Yeah. I mean, I like the movie. It's a fun Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
It does have perhaps my least favorite Star Wars character of all time in it. I would put L3 below Jar Jar Binks for sure. That was that droid does not fit in with anything we've ever seen from droids in the Star Wars universe.
No, but
She did have some nice, sexy hips.
but I think having her in the film and then seeing what happens by her becoming the personality of the Falcon helps.
That I did like that.
I'm fine with that part of
Yeah.
it. There were
that-
specifically,
Hey, this is why C-3PO says what he does.
yeah, specifically some of the lines that the character had, which I'm assuming were written by the original directors, are just they just don't work.
Well, remember too, the original directors were trying to make Solo a Ace Ventura.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm assuming that dialogue came from the original directors and not Ron Howard. But there were some L3 lines that were very, like Matt Vader just said, they were cringy.
Cringy, yeah.
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 What do y'all think about? I mean, it may not be intentional, but knowing Kevin Feige, he's always done this stuff. He used to do it to DC all the time, but I think they're so beaten down right now. He's left them alone. And in May, he took 2 shots across the bow of Star Wars. He on May 4th, he dropped the Marvel Celebrates the Movies trailer, and that was the showcase for all of the new Phase 4 stuff. And
Yeah.
then on May 25th, he dropped the Eternals trailer.
Right.
And whatever you think about those trailers is not even the question, but like the fact that
That he did it on those dates.
that he did it on those days, I mean, it had to be on purpose.
So I have a friend who says that that Marvel Entertainment and Lucasfilm, again under Disney, are battling it out internally, and they're screwing with each other. Which, you know, you're telling me that what you're telling me kind of makes that the case, but it, like, business wise, I just don't see how that makes any sense. If
Well,
I
I
were
mean-
Disney, I'd be like, dudes, we're the same family. Just
Right.
do your shit.
Well, and Feige doing that is not hurting.
Right.
It's not hurting Star Wars, and I don't think he would. I mean, he's supposed to be producing a Star Wars movie. He's not out to hurt
Right.
the other property, but he's never been afraid on somebody else's big day
Sure.
to say, "Oh, by the way,
we're doing this."
Look over here."
But what is hurting, you know, what you guys mentioned earlier was the fact that Disney decided to spend more money on a Marvel release as far as marketing rather than helping to market Solo. That is hurting, and
Yeah.
that was done internally.
That was Infinity War, if I remember right.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it was Infinity War. Everything. It,
Yeah.
Oh no, I mean when they announced Infinity War's release date, everything else that was supposed to release that
Right.
month started trying to get out.
Yeah, I remember
I
that.
mean, Infinity, here's Infinity War, and it's going to end up being in the films. This is part one. You had the entire movie industry going, oh shit,
Yeah, I remember.
point blank. It's and then to throw Star Wars in that whole mix.
Mhm.
Yeah, no.
What do you guys think of the comment on screen from Semper Fi?
I'm still 100% comic book fatigue is not a thing.
Yeah,
As long as they and I understand some of the movies are formulaic, especially the Avengers films, but a lot of these films are not formulaic. You've done stuff like Ant-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy and all these things that have very different feels to them. Of course, they're going to feel a little. The Avengers films all do sort of have a similar feel, but that makes sense.
Right.
And I think that if you think that they're a little bit too formulaic, I would say probably from what we're seeing right now, get ready, because I think that it may be a miss, but they haven't really missed yet, and they're fixing to go for something to really shake comic book films up. I think Eternals is, the studio is incredibly high on this film, higher than I've heard them on anything in a long time. And whether it ends up being good or bad, they are setting out to set some sort of new benchmark in comic book films.
Yeah, I know when they were talking internals after, back around the time of the Inhumans with the show.
Right.
Okay, there's the whole new direction they're going to go after they wrap up phase 3
Right.
or whatever concept they're going with. Once they come to their conclusion of the Avengers storyline, there's going to be something new.
Yeah.
So, with the Eternals, that's cool. If there's comic book fatigue out there, and if there is a formula approach to films, it's done by DC,
Yeah.
and that's where the fatigue is. everything's got to be a dark film.
Well, they did break down and do Shazam.
Shazam was still dark, look wise. I mean,
I mean,
it wasn't a bright film. I mean,
Right.
I didn't see
it-
Shazam.
it was
Too much
great.
comedy.
Shazam's a lot of fun.
Shazam was a great film, but I mean, visually, it was dark. You know, a lot
Yeah.
of gray skies, not a lot of sun. If we can have bright days in Marvel films, why can't we have bright days in DC films? It almost seems like DC stands for dark cinema.
I think the real thing with fatigue is, and it shows, this is the difference between Marvel and DC currently. If you make really good movies, you make fun movies, and you tell good stories, people are never going to get tired of hearing good stories.
Exactly.
Right, like what Matt's saying here.
Yep.
Put out a quality product and people will go. Like I said, if I want to see 3 movies that look good to me in the theater on a Saturday afternoon, I'll go see 3 good movies. I'll make a decision afterwards. But if they're in my brain to go see them, I'll go see them.
That's the thing is, and we talk about this a lot on our show. It always comes back to just tell good stories. Every movie doesn't have to be a masterpiece. It just has to tell a good story that people relate to.
Now,
Yeah.
seeing that comment by Matt,
Yeah.
I'll
put it back up.
guess my question would be to you guys: how do you feel about J.J. Abrams coming back just recently and saying that it was a mistake that they didn't plan out?
He's just confirming what the rest of us already knew.
And I think JJ had kind of hinted at that in the past, that
Yeah.
when they were doing their tour for Rise of Skywalker, I mean, he kind of beat around the bush about it, but I mean, he was clearly not happy about the direction that some things had gone that kind of changed what he wanted to do. And some of the actors confirmed that as well. So I'm not really that surprised to hear him say it.
Oh, but
Especially,
Andrew, wait, Andrew, the JJ worked with Ryan Johnson though.
yeah. But especially now that
And he was
JJ's never coming back, most likely, to work on a
Right.
Star Wars project. I mean, JJ's set for life with this new deal. I mean, not that he wasn't already set for life, but I mean,
Sure.
he's going to be at Warner Brothers for probably at least the next decade, making everything he wants to make. And it's so I think now he feels like he can be a little more open about it. And love or hate JJ as a director, he seems to be a class act as a director. I don't see him coming out and just totally throwing someone under the bus. But the
Right.
fact that he's saying, yeah, there were problems is not a surprise.
Exactly.
Do you think it was me personally? I think it was a mistake that they didn't have one specific person driving the ship for all 3 films.
It
right.
it needed a creative head that just
Yeah.
said, wait a minute. But
The original
Right.
trilogy, Kirshner directed the second film, directed Empire, but Lucas was still
that's
yeah.
the thing. Lucas was always, and there were things that maybe Kirshner and some of the other guys wrote. I mean, there's been all sorts of,
Yeah.
ideas like that. It was their idea that Leia would be Luke's sister, and not Lucas's. So I'm sure there were things that changed based on the directors and some of the other people on board. But Lucas was always in charge.
Lucas always signed off on it. I thought that's what it was going to be with J.J. Abrams the whole way through, even though J.J. worked with Ryan.
And I would be okay if Disney said, you know what, we tried this experiment and it didn't work. We tried handing off one film of each of the trilogy to a new director, and it didn't come out as what we thought. I would probably have more respect for them if they came out and just said that. I mean, again, it was very evident from the get-go that nobody talked to each other when it came to the sequel trilogy. But
And I
Again.
think that's what made the standalone film so much better. I mean,
Yeah.
Rogue One and Solo, I thought
Oh.
were definitely much stronger films.
Yeah. I mean, I would say The Force Awakens was a strong film, but it's somewhat dragged down by what came after.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Rogue One is. I think I saw Matt say somewhere up a little while ago. You know, most people have it in their top 5 Star Wars movies.
Right.
I see it in people's top 3 pretty frequently,
Sure.
It seemed
and
too.
it's a fantastic film. And Solo, for the things that, again, you know, when you have 2 totally different kinds of directors work on a movie, you're going to have some things that just don't feel right. And I think Solo suffers from some of those things.
Right.
But Solo is the movie most in the spirit of Return of the Jedi of anything we've ever got in Star Wars. It's, you know, leans into some of those same types of things, particularly with, I mean, even going back to A New Hope, we never got aliens in Star Wars again like we did in the Cantina until Solo.
Didn't we have?
I mean, there were aliens. There were always aliens, but they never leaned into the aesthetic as hard as they did in Jedi,
Yeah.
or the Cantina in A New Hope.
Right.
And they really leaned into that aesthetic with some of the seedy joints we went to in Solo.
No, I would say Phantom Menace. You got a lot of that, especially pod racing.
That's
Yeah.
true. That's true.
But it wasn't as impactful, I think, as when we first saw the creatures in A New Hope. I think you know, and then, you know, a lot of that work wasn't even finished because Stuart Freeborn was sick, and they had to kind of rehash some stuff. But it's still something, you know, again, something that audiences had not seen for up until that point. And, you know, we get some reworkings of that in Return of the Jedi and Jabba's Palace too, which were, you know, also pretty amazing. But Maz's castle, you know, we get some aliens that were really interesting to look at in TFA.
Right.
Now, I think I will counter an argument I've heard from a lot of people about TFA. Oh, it's just a New Hope rehash. Okay. So was the Phantom Menace.
Right.
I mean, essentially, it was the same.
Well, it's what led to the. I mean, you can go read entire. I mean, you can go read college papers on Star Wars as a ring cycle that were based on the first 6 films.
Right.
So, I mean, if you're going to criticize Force Awakens as being a New Hope rehash, then criticize Phantom Menace as well. It essentially is basically the same thing.
Yeah. I mean,
All
I think that
9 movies is just one movie.
I mean, I do think that there are a lot of things. I see why people said that, but I mean, people, you know, you're right. Phantom Menace was the same thing, and it made sense to me that that's the way. It never bothered me that they did that with The Force Awakens because it felt right.
Right. But you look at Empire Strikes Back, you look at Attack of the Clones, totally different films. So if you if you use the same formula for the first film in the new trilogy, is basically you're using A New Hope for your basis for Phantom Menace, and then everything changes after that. Use A New Hope as the basis for Force Awakens, and everything changes after that. That's fine, because what got us into the Star Wars trilogy, the original trilogy, A New Hope.
Yeah, going on that journey.
That mediocre formula, which is considered overrated, but we all know and love, and who cares if it's overrated or not, worked with. I mean, it works for setting up the first film in the trilogy.
Sure.
And if they go and create some new trilogy that has nothing to do with the Skywalker saga, which is destined to happen,
Sure.
would I be upset if they used the the plot points of A New Hope for that first film? No, because that's what Star Wars is.
That's what Star Wars is, and this is what the Scuttlebutt is. Some great discussions with friends and fellow Red Fivers. I want to say thank you to everybody that joined us in the chat. We are going to cut it for tonight. Great discussion. Guys, Andrew and Mike, thank you very much. Andrew, what do you guys got coming up next on Coruscant Radio Underground?
We've got some stuff we're going to do. I mean, we've got a couple of episodes of the Padawan Report.
Oh, nice.
That we're putting together this weekend to do with the kids on the Bad Batch. And, yeah, I'm not real sure what else we got coming out, but definitely working on some stuff.
Excellent, excellent. We'll be tuning in for that. And Mike, Wookiee Radio, what's going on with you guys?
I have no clue. That usually we come up with the stuff usually day of.
Yeah.
As you know, Ro, you've been on the show with us. We record, we let get the show out, and we just let whatever build up and just happen to get whatever we could find. Mighty
Awesome.
Marvel Geeks, which is also on the Red 5 network.
Mhm.
Again, same thing, don't know.
Sure.
But am working on a guest for Weeby Geeks next week. Don't want to say yet because we're still in the final plotting stage. It's about 75% confirmed, but it'd be a while since we've had a guest
Cool.
at this level on the show.
Excellent. Awesome. Looking forward to that. And I want to make a quick announcement. Tonight we announced a new member of the Red 5 Network. Our one of the Scare of Scuttlebutt podcast patron, 97 Bravo. He's got a podcast called The Convergence. I urge you guys to check that out when you get a chance. Available, I think, everywhere, but make sure. He's also on YouTube. He does some really great, interesting topics from a military and service person perspective. So The Convergence, 97 Bravo. Follow him if you don't. Give him a sub. And that's about it. We got a new episode of the Scare of Scuttlebutt podcast coming up with some topics referred to us from our friends over at the Discord server that we have. We've had it for a while, but Sean over at Extra Techie has encouraged me to use Discord a little more, so we're kind of hanging out in there too. So we got a couple of topics that we are hopefully dropping on Tuesday. Short episode that we're calling Quick Cuts, so look out for that. But again, have a good night, everybody. We'll chat out there in the Twitterverse. May the Force be with you. And that's the Scuttlebutt, everybody. Good night.